We're in troubled times, and my optimism is being tested. We don't have the luxury of time to keep mucking about willy-nilly. What are you doing in the midst of all this chaos? How will you temper all this madness? I believe that I was born for a reason, and I'm committed to living my purpose in action. Until I die, I am a dangerous man to those who promote dystopian agendas. I will war against anyone aligned with the unnecessary suffering of the dark side until my death. Alright, so there's a lot of crazy shit going on in the world right now, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video today. I'm talking about Black Lives Matter, COVID-19, this masquerade of enforcing people to wear masks, freedom in America and across the world, human rights, and so much more. So I don't know how much of this I'm going to get deep on, but I can tell you, if you want to hear more detailed reflections from me and Tracy about COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter, I will be putting a link in the description to those videos where you can check them out. One of the last ones we did ended up being 45 minutes long, so it's long form content and we do go deep, but there's a lot of crazy shit in the world going on, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. I also want to invite you to subscribe to my channel. If the energetic quality of the content that you're seeing in my videos resonates with you, go ahead and subscribe if you like. But if you're new to this channel and we're meeting for the first time, I want to introduce myself to you. My name is David Whipple, and I am traveling with my partner in shine, Tracy. Hey, Tracy, come over here. So why don't you tell them who we are, where we're at, what we're doing.
Well, David and I have been living with each other and traveling together for the most part of the past 4 years. And right now we are enjoying this camp hosting gig in Northern California, high in the Sierras, right next to a lake, and it's really beautiful. Basically, right now in this time, we are just living kind of moment to moment. Everybody asks, where are you going next? We have no idea, and that's kind of exciting. We haven't had any of this planned out from the beginning.
Yeah, we've been living full-time in this vintage burro trailer that Tracy pretty much remodeled. I helped a little bit since February this year of 2020. So we've been on the road for a few months, and we love living simply, minimally, and essentially. And so this semi-nomadic lifestyle that we live on the road suits us quite well, and so it landed us to where we're at now with this gig as camp hosts here. If you want to see the general tour of what we do as camp hosts here at this campground, the last video, I'll put the link in the description, you can check that out. We show you what we do as camp hosts. And so like Tracy said, this is a very beautiful place that we're at. We are very grateful to be disconnected from the internet because we get no cell service out here. So we are very much immersed from sunrise till sundown in nature with the wildlife going on. But speaking of gratitude, I think it can't be overstated that gratitude is one of the most important sensations that we can generate as humans. And so I am very grateful for everything. I'm grateful to the generosity of other people helping me to get to where I'm at and develop into who I am. I'm especially grateful to Tracy for just being present in my life with the way that she is. So thank you, and I'm just grateful for you tuning in too. But before going any further, I'm gonna change scenery and let Tracy get back to reading her book. What are you reading, by the way?
1984. It's very compelling and pretty scary, just how many similarities there are to what seems to be happening in the world right now. And, Orwellian has become just a term that we can use to describe a society, but I just really wanted to know the details of what he lays out in this book. So I'm loving it. I'll have more reflections later on that.
George Orwell's 1984. You've heard the term Orwellian, but You got to read the book, I think. I've heard enough quotes from it. I think I've basically read it, but I can see it in society right now. It is beyond 1984. If we look into the world going on around us, all the stress and anger and friction going on, it's beyond Orwellian what's going on. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. I'm going to let Tracy get back to reading, and we're going to do a change of scenery. Alright, so it's a beautiful day by the lake, and I'm looking forward to sharing the subjects of this video with you. There's a few reasons why I'm sharing them, and that is because the first one is I don't want anybody to be confused about where I stand and how I feel, because I feel very strongly convicted, like I have a passion and purpose in my life, and I observe the troubles of our times right now, and I'm going to speak to them to the best of my ability. Second of all, I see censorship worldwide being such a problem right now, where so many voices are being silenced. Major social media platforms like YouTube and Facebook and all kinds of other sites are just canceling their channels and shutting them down. I gotta get my perspectives out there before it's too late, because I could see a point in the future someday where even I am censored because I'm speaking out against the mainstream narrative. So it's like now or never. I want to do it before it's too late. And thirdly, maybe most importantly, I care about you and other people in the world, and I want to serve with excellence. I want my observations to be serving you with positive construction. I want to inspire you to continue to open up your mind and your heart in the way that you think and feel in the world around you, and especially with your friends and family, because life is so precious. So the first thing I'm going to mention is the people in Seattle who took over Capitol Hill. What a joke that was. At first they were calling it Chaz, for Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, but that wasn't even correct because they weren't even close to being autonomous. So it shouldn't have been called Chaz in the first place. And then they changed their name to CHOP for Capitol Hill Organized Protests, which again was a complete joke because they were not even close to being organized. I think that they should have called themselves CHIP, standing for Capitol Hill Idiot Parade, because that's what they were. They were parading around like a bunch of idiots, crying out there, making demands. The whole thing was ridiculous, and I am so glad that it got disbanded and they got kicked out of there, because they were just, at best, setting a bad example to basically everyone in the world, and at worst, they were causing anarchy and terrorism on people too, and now we got to go in there and clean up their mess too. So the whole thing was a complete flop, and we should be calling what they did CHIP for Capitol Hill Idiot Parade. So pretty much the people behind CHIP were Black Lives Matter, and that whole thing is a joke at best, and it's a deeply destructive radical left situation that is being led by Antifa, and they are puppets in a very dark game. So Black Lives Matter is happening, and then there was this George Floyd thing, which was a complete scam. I don't even think that thing was real. It was a false flag attack. No way that could have gone down as it did. Even if it did, I got some pretty strong opinions that go against the mainstream narrative about that, what people saw in that video. But I talked at length about George Floyd and Black Lives Matter 2 videos ago. I'm linking that in the description. There's another thing that I didn't mention in that video that is worth sharing with you now, and that is people talk about this hunting down of black people and racism and white cops committing violence on black people who are perceived to be not deserving it and innocent and all that. Well, check this out. I'm also going to put the link of this in the description. You got to check this out. You probably haven't heard of Tony Tempa. This was an incident that happened 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. And in this video, white officers are arresting this other white guy, and they are, in effect, sort of, well, they were acting like jackasses for sure. They were taunting him. Anyway, they got him down on his stomach, and one of the cops put his knee on the back of Tony Timpa's neck for nearly 13 minutes. And nobody's talking about that. That was a white on white crime, you could call it, but it happened the very same way that George Floyd incident went down, or was portrayed on the internet. Another very interesting connection that I made recently. Now, there might be something to it, there might not, but I think there could be. Listen to this. It was 8 minutes and 46 seconds that the cop had his knee on George Floyd's neck. Now, remember 9/11, September 11th, when the planes flew into the World Trade Center, which is a complete scam too. The first plane struck the tower at 8:46. Now, that was like a major calamity that shook the world in a major way. And 8:46. Okay, so that was a pivotal moment. And this George Floyd incident, true or false, was also a pivotal moment, 8:46. I'm just wondering if the people who the evil, dark, deep state people who orchestrated this event to manipulate us, if they didn't somehow, they like to make those connections to themselves too. It's all symbolism with numerology. I think that there's something to it. I'm just saying. All right, so I mentioned 9/11, and I'm not going to go too much in that. I think I'm going to do a separate video on how 9/11 was a complete scam, in case you're unaware of that. But I do want to mention right now, again, links in the description, that there's this book by the author David Icke that I'm reading right now, and I've talked about in my last video. And he goes into a lot of deep detail about exactly how 9/11 was a complete hoax. I also want to invite you to check out a few videos that he did, which you can still find online, where David Icke is being in conversation with Brian Rose of London Real. It's also a podcast version too if you want to listen to it, but it's worth watching because some things get lost when we can't see eye to eye. There's also some other people that I've been really influenced by and inspired by the messages that they're sharing with us in the world right now. And I want to give them special shout outs, links in description to each of these people too, because I highly recommend that you check them out if you're not already aware of them. One of them that I've already mentioned a couple videos back when I was talking about Black Lives Matter is Candace Owens. This woman is a powerhouse. I'm really impressed with not only what information she's putting out, but how she does it too. She's very quick-witted, very intelligent, and very outspoken about, because she's black too, she's very outspoken about the injustices that are truly being done in a manipulative way to the black people, that's spun in an abstract way by the left-wing democratic type people. So Candace Owens, good job. Keep up the good work out there. And this guy, Brandon Tatum, I've been on him really a lot recently. He's got a YouTube channel where he puts out videos just straight talking to the camera like this. And Brandon Tatum is an ex-police officer, and he's an ex-Democrat too, now turned Republican, because he woke up to the reality of how he was being manipulated by the Democratic parties and stuff. And so he's doing a lot of videos on his channel where he talks about all the current events and he breaks them down, like George Floyd too and others. So mad shout outs to Brandon Tatum, Officer Tatum. Keep up the good work out there. And last but definitely not least, maybe most importantly, a guy that I'm really impressed with watching these days is Tucker Carlson on Fox News. Now, I get a lot of pushback from people. I've had some people on Facebook like call me racist and unfriend me because I post a link to a Tucker Carlson monologue on his Fox News channel. And Tucker Carlson is one of the last real journalists who is showing up in the world right now, and I resonate deeply with what he's saying. I think his messages are so important. He calls it out. He is very courageous, and if you haven't watched some of his clips, I'll put a link in the description. You gotta check him out. I just want to invite you to check him out with an open mind and just listen, because that's another problem I see with a lot of these radical left Democratic wingnuts, is that they apparently don't have the ability to listen anymore. They can't hear other opinions, and they just shut people down and call them racist, so it's ridiculous. But anyway, Tucker Carlson is taking a stand, and it might be one of the last great journalists who is standing up before we all get censored, especially if Biden gets elected. I don't know what's going to happen with the elections coming up. Right now it's middle of July, so we got a few months to go. But I tell you what, I've never voted in my life because I always knew from a young age intuitively that the whole thing is set up. Voting in the United States, at least, is rigged. It doesn't even work. These presidential candidates from the polar parties that come and go, they're the transient government, but not the deep state government that is permanent and in the shadows behind the scenes. So even if voting worked, and it doesn't really matter who we pick for, that's what I think about voting basically. But if I was to vote this election, I would vote for Trump. And I know for sure that some of my friends and associates and people online, when they hear me say this, they might write me off completely, and a lot of people might disagree. And so there's this term woke and wokeness going on to describe a lot of people who are left-leaning, democratic, Marxist type people. They call themselves woke. Well, I think that there's a woke virus going on. It's a pandemic pretty much worldwide right now. It's infecting a lot of people's minds. They're being controlled like puppets. The strings are being pulled from the hidden hand behind the shadows, and it's permeating society. It's a woke virus. It is more infectious than the fake COVID that's going around too. So I just need to name it, share that, and warn people too. If you feel like you're coming down with the woke virus, you gotta seek help immediately. And so when it comes to all these mainstream narratives that we hear coming from the top down as demands of authoritarian tyranny from the media outlets and stuff, they're just parroting the same thing. They get handed scripts from the cockroaches in the shadow who are really running things, which I'll get into in maybe the next video when I talk about 9/11 and who really did it and why. Well, these mainstream narratives, they do a lot of damage to the freedom of humans. And so I'm always, by default myself, looking, listening, questioning authority, and I want to encourage you and other people to do that. That's one of the main reasons why I believe I'm alive, is to rally up other people to awaken, not woken, but awaken to the beauty and majesty of our world and to liberate ourselves. No one else can do it for us. We got to think for ourselves, because these people who are in positions of power over us, they derive their power exclusively from the acquiescence of power from people like us. So when the mass majority of sheeple on the earth, when they just blindly obey and acquiesce their rights and freedoms to whatever the narrative of the day is, the tyrannical regime that's been coming for a long time and is getting a whole lot worse now, it's the acquiescence of power. And so I just want to remind you, and hopefully you can remind others too, that we can stand up and say no to this totalitarian tiptoe that's been going on. And totalitarian, as defined, has been tiptoeing forward for many years, and the only way it's going to stop before their agenda is realized is for us to interrupt that pattern and stop acquiescing our power to them. So we need solutions, and one of the solutions that I believe the world could really benefit from right now is this thing of essentialism. Now, essentialism is the relentless pursuit of less but better, which stands in contrast to what we see as par for course the worldwide now, which is the relentless pursuit of more and worse. And so hyper consumerism going on, like the Walmarts, people can go into Walmarts, but they can't go to a yoga studio. This hyper consumerism, just buy more useless shit and then throw it away, destroy the environment faster, more. It's destroying the lives of individuals and families and countries the world over. And so one of the main parts of my life is to promote essentialism, to counteract or reverse the effects of hyperconsumerism. Essentialism, the relentless pursuit of less but better. It's quality over quantity. It provides more richness, depth, meaning, and fulfillment to our lives when we can declutter, minimize, open up the space around us, and start to feel what is truly essential. Being in nature, the sun on our skins, friends and family, dwelling in the magnificence of the divine creator's generosity. Because otherwise, when people are just really selfish, not like not wearing a mask selfish, but truly selfish, they're on the take more for them and fuck everyone else, that is just ripping everything apart. So there's also been this insidious softening of society, especially when it comes to males. There's toxic masculinity being propagated in the minds of people and infecting their attitudes about masculine and males and men in this world. It's doing a major disservice to families and more. So I'm just laboring in love for men to show up again, to cultivate the courage to stand up straight with your shoulders back and feel into your heart and put your bravery into action by speaking your truth to the world and serving your families and communities, to be calm, to look, to listen, and to speak and put your words into action with a positive, constructive mindset to make the world a better place and equality for everyone. And just that's just the wholesome revolution. It won't happen without men showing up on the scene again, because there is evil in this world in addition to light. There's the good and the bad, that archetypal fight between good and evil, like the Force and the Jedis with Star Wars. And the only way we're going to counteract that is if we stand up and we're willing to fight and die too, because that's what it ultimately comes down to, is the willingness to recognize evil and to combat that. And we have to be strong. We have to be in touch with the potential for evil, which is in all of us, to know that we could be taken over by the dark side. We could give in to the dark side, but we won't. So we have that power in us, which is way more powerful than any of these pathetic evildoers who are hiding behind the scenes, really pulling the strings, have anyway too. So we got to be dangerous, and we have to fight for good. And men and women out there, we also have to be humble. We have to deploy humility in all things, because as the island of our knowledge grows, so does the shore of our ignorance. And in the span of our lifetimes, we will experience things, and then we will die. We will experience the dying process that naturally leads to death. And in that time, through humility and gratitude and all of these kinds of principles, maybe we can become elders. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but elders have pretty much gone AWOL, missing in action. I'm not sure if I've ever maybe met one or two true elders in my time. I don't know about you, but we need elders in our midst again, who can guide us and counsel us through their hard-earned experiences fighting for good, hopefully, because mucking about willy-nilly and doing evil deeds and other people's biddings, blindly obeying, that does not generate elders. And so the primary part of my life purpose, I believe, is to continue having these experiences, and as I age, thankfully, I can maybe accumulate enough wisdom to become an elder to help guide the future generation into this brave new world, which is scary as fuck that we're entering. Let's conjure elders back into our midst so we can really level up this conversation and our actions. An elder could be defined as having grace under pressure at the foundation. Grace under pressure, and there's so much pressure in society right now. I know a lot of us are experiencing that, and not a lot of people are showing grace where they can be respectful to other people and listen and disagree and still get along. Elders are not milquetoast. They are dangerous. They are dangerous in their ability to disrupt stupidity. So I've got a couple more points I want to share with you to sort of wrap this video up. They're points of positivity and optimism. But before I do that, I'm going to go grab Tracy. We're going to get on the kayak and head out to the lake. So being in nature like this, it's hard not to be positive and optimistic. So I want to share some of those vibes with you before we end this video. What I mean is, I'm talking about perspective. When I look out at the world in the big picture, in the grand scheme of things, things could be a whole lot worse than they are right now. And they might get really bad, but if we can remain optimistic and positive and have the perspective that it could be hell on earth like it has been in the past. And when it comes to social interactions between us humans, I would suggest that we strive to lift each other up instead of tearing each other down. I see people spending way too much time infighting, arguing, blaming, and shaming, and it's not doing any good. It's actually destructive, and it's only going to cause more divisiveness when we need more unity. So let's not forget who the real enemy is. It's not you. It's not me. It's not any of us common people. Again, without going into detail, it's the man behind the curtain, the deep state shadow government, and it goes really deep and it gets really dark, and those people are the ones manipulating and lying and pulling the strings, the puppet strings. So don't let yourself be puppeted. Don't parrot the mainstream narratives, which are just spreading fear and hate and negativity. I would say that if we want to live, from what I can tell from my experience, if we want to live with more fulfillment and meaning and contribution to others, we can learn to live more openly instead of always closing off. We can learn to love ourselves and others more honestly. And this, from what I can tell, leads to making a more positive impact, and hopefully, intentionally, we can enter our dying days with more wisdom to make that contribution to the future generations. So it's fitting that during this beautiful sunset on this lake that this video is coming to close. I'm so glad you decided to click on it and to join me. If the energetic quality of my content is resonating with you, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to build a community and carry on this conversation to greater heights. All right, bye-bye for now. Hopefully we'll see you in the next video.